My name is Olivia Bennett, and the night my son told me I'd die renting and alone was the first time I truly saw him, not as the boy I raised, but as the man he chose to become. It happened at a restaurant he insisted on choosing, the kind with dim lighting, overpriced cocktails, and waiters who pretend they don't hear arguments. I had barely sat down when Sierra, his girlfriend, leaned back in her chair with that perfect, polished smile she wears like perfume. "Daniel and I were talking," she said, tapping her manicured nail against her glass. "It's not healthy for you to keep living in that little apartment. You should think about an assisted living place." Daniel didn't correct her. He didn't defend me. He just stared at me like I was a burden he'd been forced to drag for too long. Then he said it. "You'll die renting and alone, Mom. And maybe that's for the best. At least then you won't be my problem." The restaurant went silent. A couple at the next table paused mid-bite. Even Sierra stopped smiling, surprised by how far he took it. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just folded my napkin, placed it neatly beside my plate, and stood. "Thank you for dinner," I said softly, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. "Enjoy your evening." As I walked out into the cold night air, my phone buzzed with a voicemail from my attorney. A calm voice said, "Olivia, the final documents for the inheritance transfer are ready. Call me when you're home." I stopped on the sidewalk, the city lights blurring around me. Daniel thought he knew everything about me. He had no idea what door had just opened. When I got home that night, the silence in my apartment felt louder than the entire restaurant. I set my purse on the counter and sat on the edge of the couch, letting Daniel's words echo in my mind. Renting and alone. The phrase circled like a cold draft slipping under a door. I wasn't fragile. I wasn't helpless. But hearing that from my own son cut deeper than I expected. There was a time he held my hand crossing the street, drew pictures of us with "Mom is my hero" scrawled underneath. I tried to remember the last time I'd seen that version of him and couldn't. After a moment I exhaled and grabbed my phone. My attorney's voicemail was still there, steady grounding. I played it again. The inheritance transfer, the Bennett legacy fund, my mother's final safeguard. I went to the small kitchen table, pulled out the storage box beneath it, and took out documents I hadn't touched in years. Trust forms, investment statements, letters my mother wrote before she passed. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from clarity settling into place. Daniel thought I lived in this rented apartment because I had no choice. He never understood that simplicity was comfort to me, not limitation. I flipped to the latest statement. The fund had grown diversified portfolios, high-yield bonds, a real estate investment added years ago. Nearly $7 million in total. I stared at the number not with excitement or greed, but with a quiet sense of awakening. Like discovering a hidden door in a house I'd lived in my entire life. My mother always said wealth means nothing unless you use it to protect your dignity. Tonight I finally understood. My phone buzzed. "Daniel. We should talk." I turned it face down. There would be a conversation, but not the one he expected. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the blinds, landing on the stack of documents I'd left on the table. $7 million, an amount Daniel would never imagine tied to me. An amount I'd never used or mentioned because I believed raising him with humility mattered more than raising him with entitlement. But humility wasn't what he learned. I brewed coffee and sat down again, staring at the trust papers. For years, my attorney, Mr. Halberg, had encouraged me to move somewhere safer, somewhere that matched my financial reality. I always insisted I was fine where I was. Last night shifted that, not my heart, my boundaries. I called him. "Olivia," he said warmly, ready to finalize the transfer. "Yes," I replied. "And I want to discuss buying a new property, something private, peaceful." He paused, then said, "You deserve that. I'll arrange viewings. There's a villa in Lakeshore Heights you might love." A villa. The idea felt strange and yet somehow right. My mother always dreamed of living near water. She said it calmed the spirit. Maybe this was honoring her, not indulging myself. After the call, I opened the letter she wrote before she passed the one I'd never had the strength to finish. Olivia wealth is not loud. It is quiet, patient, powerful. I leave you this so you can choose your life, not survive inside someone else's expectations. My eyes blurred not with grief but with understanding. A sudden knock startled me. I opened the door to find Sierra, perfect hair, perfect posture, perfect artificial concern. "We need to talk," she said, breezing past the threshold of politeness. "Daniel thinks you're overreacting. But honestly, assisted living would be better for you." I didn't flinch. I didn't move. Instead, I smiled, calm, steady, unreadable. "Interesting timing," I said. I was just finalizing the purchase of a new home. Her eyebrows shot up, and for the first time I saw a crack in her confidence. Sierra blinked rapidly, her confidence slipping just enough for me to see the calculation behind her smile. New home," she repeated, voice too light. "You mean a smaller apartment? Something easier for you to manage?" "No," I said. "A villa. On the lake." She forgot to breathe. Her eyes darted past me to the papers on the table. Sierra was never subtle ambition wrapped in fake concern. And ambition always recognizes opportunity. "Since when can you afford a villa?" she asked, sugar dripping from her voice. "That's my business," I said. "But thank you for your concern." She swallowed. "Daniel didn't know about this." "No," I said. "He didn't." And there it was, the shift. Her posture straightened. Smile softened, tone turning honey-sweet. "I'm so glad you're upgrading," she said. "You deserve something nice. Maybe Daniel and I can help. We're great with real estate decisions." I stepped aside so she could clearly see the envelope on the table, my attorney's seal glinting through the light. Her eyes locked onto it instantly. "Is that?" "Yes, legal confirmation." She didn't blink. She was calculating. "Daniel should see this," she blurted. "He's been worried about you. He didn't mean what he said." I held her gaze. "He told me I would die renting and alone. That wasn't concern." Her jaw tightened before she smoothed her expression. "He was emotional. Stress does that to him." "Stress didn't make him cruel," I said. "Choice did." She opened her mouth again, but I cut her off. "I'm moving next week. My lease is ending. So we won't need to discuss assisted living anymore." The words hit her hard. Panic flickered because without needing their help, I was no longer useful to her. "I'll tell Daniel you came by," I added. "Goodbye, Sierra." I closed the door gently, no anger, no force. Just a quiet click, the sound of a chapter ending. And another beginning. The villa was even more stunning in person than in the photos. Glass walls wrapped around the entire structure, offering a full open view of the lake. The still water felt like it was waiting for me, quiet, steady, untouched by judgment or manipulation. Mr. Hallberg walked beside me, listing property details, but my attention stayed on the sunlight flickering across the balcony rails. I wasn't imagining escape anymore. I was imagining belonging here. "This one suits you," he said. "Private, secure, peaceful. It feels like a life I forgot I could choose." He nodded. "Exactly what your mother intended." By the end of the tour, I knew. I signed the preliminary escrow papers with a steady hand strength blooming not from anger, but from finally realizing I didn't need anyone's permission to live well. I moved in 3 days later. On the first morning, I stood on the balcony with tea, listening to the lake's soft ripple. No insults, no pressure, just quiet. Real quiet, but quiet never lasts long where Sierra is involved. On my second day, the security system pinged 2 figures at the gate. The camera zoomed in Daniel and Sierra, staring at the villa like they'd found buried treasure. I walked downstairs as the gate unlocked. Their jaws dropped as they stepped onto the driveway. The villa rose above them, modern, pristine, undeniably luxurious. Sierra spoke first. "Oh my God. Olivia, you live here." Daniel didn't speak. He just stared, eyes darting across the property like he was trying to piece his mother together again. "I do," I said. "Welcome." The caretaker, Mr. Lane, approached. "Miss Bennett, shall I set refreshments on the terrace?" Daniel's head snapped toward him. "Miss Bennett." "Yes, sir," Mr. Lane said politely. "Everything is prepared as requested." Sierra's mouth fell open. Daniel's shoulders slumped as the truth sank in. He'd never known who his mother really was. And for the first time, they weren't looking at me like a burden. They were looking at me like someone they had never bothered to understand. Daniel followed me toward the terrace like a man walking through a dream he wasn't sure he belonged in. Sierra trailed behind her heels, clicking sharply, her nerves showing. The lake stretched out before us, calm blue, endless. Their chaos looked tiny against it. I sat at the outdoor table while Mr. Lane set down tea and fruit. Sierra instantly straightened her posture, trying to look like she fit here. Daniel looked like he'd forgotten how to breathe. "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" he asked, voice unsteady. "Tell you what I asked quietly. That I had choices. A life beyond what you assumed." His face reddened. "I didn't assume." "Yes," I said gently. "You did." Sierra leaned forward, syrup sweet. "Olivia, we just didn't know. If Daniel had known, he would have supported you." A practiced lie. I poured my tea. "He told me to move into assisted living." "That was a misunderstanding," she rushed. Daniel rubbed his forehead. "I was stressed. I said things I didn't mean." "You meant them," I said. "That's why they hurt." Silence settled over us. I reached into the folder beside me and placed a document on the table. Sierra's eyes darted to it immediately. "What's that?" Daniel asked. "My updated estate plan." He swallowed. "Updated?" "Yes," I said calmly. "After how you both treated me, I removed you as beneficiaries. The Bennett Legacy Fund will go to organizations that value dignity." Sierra froze. "You're joking." "I'm not." Her face twisted shock, then anger, then something icier. She stood abruptly. "Daniel, I'm not wasting my life with a man who can't even secure his inheritance." He stared at her. "Sierra, wait." But she was already storming off heels, stabbing the path. When she disappeared through the gate, the villa grew quiet again. Daniel's voice broke. "Mom, I messed up. I was stupid. Please, don't do this." I looked at him, not as the boy I raised, not as the man he pretended to be, but as someone finally facing reality. "This isn't revenge," I said softly. "It's consequence." His eyes filled, but I didn't bend. Some lessons can only be learned when the safety net is gone. Daniel sank into the chair across from me. Shoulders slumped, palms flat on the table, as if he needed it to stay upright. For the first time in years, he didn't look annoyed or defensive. He looked lost, like a man realizing he'd set fire to the only bridge he ever needed. "Mom," he whispered. "I didn't understand. I thought you were struggling. I thought I had to push you. I don't know. I was stupid." "Stupidity isn't the issue," I said softly. "Cruelty is." He flinched. "I know. And I'm sorry. I shouldn't have talked to you like that. I shouldn't have let Sierra—" "That wasn't Sierra's fault," I said. "She encouraged it, yes. But she didn't create it. The things you said, they were already inside you." Shame flickered across his face. "I never meant to hurt you," I breathed slowly. "When you were little, you told me you'd buy me a house with a big yard someday. Do you remember?" He nodded. "And somewhere along the way I said you decided I wasn't worth respect unless I owned one." His eyes squeezed shut. "I don't want your money," he murmured. I was angry, insecure. Sierra made me feel like I wasn't enough unless I controlled everything. "You can't control what you don't understand," I replied. "You tried to manage my life because you assumed you knew better, but you never asked, you never listened." He wiped his eyes. "Can I fix this? Please, tell me how." I let the silence stretch, letting him sit with it, really sit with it. "You can start," I said at last, "by rebuilding our relationship with respect, with no expectation of anything in return. The estate plan stays as it is, for now." He nodded, accepting it, even as it hurt. "I'll earn it back, even if it takes years." He stood pausing in the doorway to look out over the lake. "Mom, your home is beautiful." "Yes," I said, meeting his eyes. "It finally is." When the door closed behind him, the villa felt warm, not empty, not lonely, peaceful, and for the first time in a long time I felt something like hope.